Let's raise the unanswered questions then. Is it true that civilians were killed, innocent civilians were killed in the crossfire? Or was this, as some are alleging, a fake encounter? Was the businessman who was killed, Altaf Butt, used as a human shield? Why was Altaf taken to the room where terrorists were hiding? Why weren't the bodies of civilians handed over to the families right away? Now that a magisterial inquiry has been ordered, hopefully some of those questions will be answered. Joining me now is Omar Abdullah, former Jammu and Kashmir Chief Minister, who's also demanded a full High Court judge to investigate this matter. Omar Abdullah, the LG appears to have listened to what many of you were calling for. He's ordered a magisterial inquiry. Do you believe that cools down some of the anger over these allegations that innocent civilians have been killed in this encounter?
Unfortunately, Rajdeep, in the current environment that we see in Jammu and Kashmir, it will take an extremely brave magistrate to counter what has been put in the public domain by the police already. And therefore, I am deeply skeptical that this magisterial inquiry will deliver the truth, which is what we all seek. And I think that's why cutting across political lines, whether it is former Chief Minister Ghulam Nabi Azad, former Chief Minister Dr. Farooq Abdullah, former Chief Minister Mehbooba Mufti or myself, we are all saying that this inquiry cannot be at a magisterial level. It must be a judicial inquiry, and a time-bound judicial inquiry that establishes the facts, because already, I mean, too much confusion has been created. The police itself has come out with multiple versions of events, and I've spoken to the families and heard from them what they believe has transpired, and therefore I don't believe that the inquiry in its current form will be able to answer all the questions that you posed right in the beginning, because those are the exact same questions that I have, and I think those are the exact same questions that every person in Jammu and Kashmir, and probably a lot of people in the rest of the country, are also asking, and they want answers to.
No, so you want a judicial inquiry. You believe that a magisterial inquiry will not be able to answer the question. The point is, there are two versions emerging. I know you're saying there are conflicting versions, but there are two versions broadly. One which suggests that this was an encounter in which perhaps people were killed in the crossfire. The other is that these people were in some way overground enablers of the terrorists. Now, these are two clear different versions. Some are suggesting that the other thing, that they were used as a human shield.
No, they're actually No, the police version, what the police originally announced was that they were civilians killed in crossfire. Subsequently, that narrative was changed. And from what I understand, and again, this is something the inquiry will have to establish, these people were not in the building when the encounter started. All the shopkeepers and tenants and others in the area had been removed to a different showroom, and they were being kept there. After the encounter started, the police took these people to the building. They were taken there not once but multiple times, taken there and brought back. And then one by one, these people died, supposedly in the crossfire. So all I'm saying is that there are far too many questions that need to be answered. And I do not believe that in the current environment in Jammu and Kashmir, you will find a magistrate who will be willing to go against the already sort of pronouncements of the establishment.
No, but at the same time, let's assume that there is an inquiry which comes out and suggests that the police, that they were killed in the crossfire. That it wasn't as if there was they were targeted by the police in any manner. Will you accept it?
If they admit, yes, that the police took them into that building, I have no problem, because that's what I heard, and that's what others have been saying, that they weren't in the building when the encounter started. They were taken into the building, and the police admit as much. The police have said as much in their public statements that they took these people into the building because they were trying to, for whatever reason.
No, those reasons are not clear. Those reasons, Omar Abdullah, there are a lot of grey areas. Those reasons are not clear yet. Whether they were used as human shields, all of this will be the subject of an inquiry.
Yeah,
My point is, whatever the inquiry says, will you accept it?
You need an inquiry that addresses those grey areas. As long as you find a magistrate who will have the courage of his or her convictions to put the truth on paper and put that truth in front of people, fine. But as I said, and I keep repeating to you, I fear that the current environment in Jammu and Kashmir has been vitiated to such an extent. There is hardly any space for open, honest speech in Jammu and Kashmir today. It will be a very brave officer, and I haven't seen very many of them, unfortunately, in the last few years, who will be willing to put their signature on a piece of paper that comes out with the truth that will probably be contrary to the chain of events that has been laid out by the police subsequent to this encounter.
But you know, Omar Abdullah, the fact is this is not the first time that we've had claims and counter claims. Even when you were Chief Minister, you will recall in April 2010, the Machil fake encounter. Army said it had killed 3 infiltrators at the time, claimed they were Pakistani militants. Later, they were identified as residents of Baramulla district. So, it's not the first time. The point at the end of the day is the security forces are also facing enormous challenges. Many of these terrorists, particularly in the last couple of years, are seen to be people who have links with locals. And there is a sense that many of these locals are therefore being described as overground collaborators of the terrorists. And the security forces are having a very difficult task. Do you appreciate that task before you immediately jump and accuse the security forces in some way of staging this?
I absolutely. I am not accusing. I am not accusing. I am asking for the truth. I am not bandying accusations. And I absolutely take the point that this is not the first time it's happened. It will not be the last time. There is not a single government in Jammu and Kashmir after 1988-89 that has not seen incidents like this. I also appreciate the very difficult circumstances under which the security forces operate in Jammu and Kashmir. But I also know that for the security forces to be able to conduct their operations properly, they need to carry the local population with them. And incidents like this actually alienate the population. They don't bring the population towards you. And therefore, it is in the interests of the security forces that we establish the truth. And that once the truth is established, action follows from there. That's all I'm asking. I'm not asking for a summary pronouncement of guilt. I'm asking that the truth be established. And I'm only saying that in the current environment, I have my fear, and I am not alone in expressing this fear. My fear is that it will be very difficult for you to find an officer who will be willing to stick their neck out and put their signature on a piece of paper that runs contrary to what is being claimed by the security forces. That's all I'm saying.
You know, Omar Abdullah, you mentioned the point about the worry that you have that already locals are alienated, that there is so much of mistrust at the moment, that there is no dialogue taking place. We've seen in the last year in particular, a number of the militants or those involved in terrorist acts who've been caught are locals with no previous history of alignments with any specific park-based organization. Does that worry you? And many of these shootouts are taking place in relatively crowded localities, and that is another concern that the security forces have. How do you see that the local that the number of local
of course it worries me.
Militants
of course it worries me. Of course it worries me. But then I have to ask this question, then what was 5th August 2019 all about? Please remember, the country at that time was told that Jammu and Kashmir's special status is the root cause of terror in Jammu and Kashmir. And the special status, the moment it's removed, terror will also be a thing of the past. Now you yourself are admitting that more and more locals with no history of any ties to Pakistan or no history of any ties to militancy or terror are now joining the ranks of terror organizations and picking up guns. Of course it's a matter of concern. It's a matter of concern to me that areas hitherto free of militancy are today once again seeing attacks of this nature. I can't sort of ignore the fact that this is Srinagar, which had been largely cleared of any militant presence over the last few years. Militancy returning to Srinagar is a recent phenomenon. I mean, this is a city from which, when I was Chief Minister, we demolished more than 40 bunkers because that's the level of comfort we had with the security environment in Srinagar. Today, not only have those 40 bunkers been reconstructed, but we've built new bunkers. So, yes, as a citizen of Jammu and Kashmir, as a resident of Srinagar, all of us are concerned with the security environment here. None of us are happy with the targeted killings when we see Muslims, Hindus, Sikhs being targeted the way they have been over the last few months. None of us are happy with this, and we want that the security situation be improved. But again, I make the point, you will not be able to improve the security environment unless you carry the local population with you. And you will not be able to carry the local population with you unless you're willing to admit where mistakes have happened and then take corrective measures. Sweeping mistakes under the carpet is actually compounding the mistake. It's not going to make the situation better.
Will you also take a stand against those locals who identify themselves with the militants today? Will you take a strong stand and say that is unacceptable?
I have never been a supporter of violence or militancy, and I don't support those who support it either. I have never made any bones about that fact. I am not one of those who speaks in different languages.
One final question to you. One of your demands today was that the body should be handed over to the families. We are being told that they will be. Is that to you a step forward in healing some of the wounds?
It is a step forward, but it's an incomplete step, because as far as I believe, it's not 2 but 3 civilians who were killed. The one unfortunate fellow, Amir Magre,
yes,
from Ghoul, whose father himself is an anti-militancy crusader. His body is also one of those that's been buried in Handwara. So while I'm happy that I've seen reports attributed to sources coming out on social media that the bodies are being handed over, 2 out of 3 is a good thing. It's what the families wanted. These people should never have been taken to Handwara and buried the way they were. But chaliye, at least if that is corrected, that's a good thing. But let's not forget Amir Magre in all this. I believe his father also, who is an anti-militancy crusader himself, I believe he deserves the right to bury his son as he sees fit.
Okay, let me leave it there, Omar Abdullah. I appreciate your joining us. This is clearly, as you said, an issue that once again stirs up some of the grievances and further perhaps widens divides in the valley. Thanks very much for joining me and giving us your perspective there. Omar Abdullah joining me there from Srinagar on that big story.